This episode may contain strong language and adult themes. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. Good evening, everybody. It's time for the 22 dropouts. We are controlling your transmission. It's the only way we get into your brain. I'd like to welcome tonight on the show Sam from Malta. Say hello, Sam. That's enough, thank you. We've got Phil from Las Vegas.
Howdy.
Tom from sunny Kent, not in his boat
Evening.
tonight.
Good evening.
Lawrence from Kenya. Say hello, Lawrence.
Hello, all.
Hey, no, it's been a few weeks since Sam and Lawrence have joined us. I know Lawrence has been busy working to help make ends meet, and Sam's just been doing the rude. So he's been rude on 2 accounts, which is why he wasn't with us. So because of that, we're going to go to Sam straight away. We're going to go to Sam straight away, and we're going to say, Sam, what have you been up to apart from doing the rude? And tell us what's been going on in rugby that you've been listening to and watching.
First of all, what does rude mean?
It's where.
Hey, Mike.
When mummies and daddies have a special cuddle.
Hey, Mike, do you mind turning on the subtitles?
Yeah. I know. I'll try and type them really quickly. In fact, if Chris was here, we could see his fingers
exactly,
doing it across the
fingers,
screen.
spider fingers. Yeah, so last couple of weeks, actually, the first week I was actually working, and then the second week, the better half was on holiday, and there was no way I was missing an opportunity to spend time with the better half doing something. So,
right, enough of the bullshit now. Come on. You got your dodgy band at last, mate. You got your dodgy band.
I know. It's just arrived 10 days ago or something like that. So it's amazing the fact that I actually got here eventually. But we can always say thanks to Mike for posting it out and all that stuff. So put finger.
Yeah, it's just a shame the Maltese post office is worse than the New Zealand one. Here we go. I've got Mike. Now, Phil, what the hell are you wearing?
Well, I've been watching the Brits get their asses kicked from 1700s in the United States.
when you say Brits, that means the red coats, right?
What's really interesting is at the end of that whole Continental Army fiasco, late 1770s, how many of them moved into Canada and decided they weren't going back to Britain because they were ashamed.
You do realise you look like you've got old Mother Hubbard's knickers or Mother Hubbard's knickers on your head, don't you?
I've been saying that for 20 or 40 years as I've been watching you guys wear these things to court. The real important part is the ponytail.
Give us a twirl, mate. You're looking dead sexy.
I think, to be fair, listen, Phil. I think Phil could be the official judge for any Kangaroo Court from now on.
However, it must be a particular type of crime that is worthy of His Honour Judge Phil. And those type of crimes, Samuel, are called
heinous
crimes.
Heinous.
We all know that heinous crimes come from a particular part of the world, and we all know who was subject to a heinous crime hearing, don't we, Sam?
Yeah, there was a few people that were subjected to that heinous crime treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you ever charged with a heinous crime, Samuel?
A couple of times, yeah, whilst out in Dubai and Poland.
and were you ever found guilty?
Well, it's pretty impossible never to be found not guilty in Kangaroo Court. So,
You just chose the wrong defence lawyer, or he just stitched you up.
Yeah, no, there wasn't a defence lawyer. I was blindsided the whole way. I was cheated out of it, but yeah, you're never going to get out of that nonsense, are you?
Superb. Lawrence, hello again. Welcome back. We've missed you. Tell us all the news that's new and approved in Kenya tonight.
So rugby league has been introduced in the country, courtesy of
one man called Richard Nyakwakwa and Benjamin Aimba. So it will be interesting to see how players are going to balance between the rugby union side and the rugby league, because apparently the rugby union players are still allowed to participate in the rugby league. So,
rugby league has never been in Kenya before. This is not only has it just come back after a lockdown, but this is actually a brand new sport for you guys.
Yes, it is actually. Yeah.
More importantly, mate, who tried to shoot you? Because it looks like you got a sniper hole just by your head.
in every Kenyan home, this is sort of an SI unit that nails still exists.
So, mate, what's going on? What have you been reading about this week?
I've been watching Super Rugby out of New Zealand, which is pretty awesome. It's actually been, it's sad the Chiefs can't win a game, but I think.
Don't go there.
I'm trying to stay away.
There might be a couple of Welshmen that are watching this. I doubt it, but there might be.
All two of them. You mean both of them?
Now, listen, tell me what happened at the weekend in Super Rugby, because it's something. Hello, why are we trying to get a view of your nipples, Sam? They're not that impressive.
I was just trying to get my Canada bit in, because I want to flog off the Canada nonsense.
The most important thing that happened out of rugby across the United States and around the world this past weekend was there was a female streaker nabbed in New Zealand.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, there was.
No.
Yep. And there's a great photo somewhere where she's on the ground and the tackler fails to release and fails to roll away.
Who are you penalising?
I'm penalising the steward.
Well, actually, at this point, I haven't made a decision. And it's one of those that you can't make that decision. That's got to go to the TMO several times.
Yeah.
I tell you what, we'll try and find the photograph, and if we do, we might just have a TMO review of it next week. How's that?
Yeah.
Tom, what have you been reading about in the... Sam.
You should actually see the picture. It's absolute class, because the guy that did the tackle, his hand stays there for a really long time, and the cameraman that took the picture, he's got the biggest smile on his face.
There is no attempt to release the tackler.
Absolutely no attempt. Yeah.
I just want to know, I honestly want to know how she was going to play the ball backwards.
Oh, between her legs, you mean?
Well, which one, for a start? Was it one or both balls she was playing?
Ooh.
No. Tom, what have you been reading about this week, mate?
So I've been looking into all the reported cuts, obviously, that the RFU are going to have to make with all the loss of revenue they've had, with all the internationals being cancelled and all the other games. So the Guardian has been reporting on some of the supposed cuts in the areas they're having certain cuts. And it is believed that certain areas are going to be hit expressively hard, especially in the rugby development area. So it's believed at the moment, it seems, that a high percentage of the club development workforce, or the rugby development officers, the community rugby coaches, are going to be lost. So how many? The Guardian sort of say that around they're going to cut the workforce down from 234 to 130 in the community game. So it's a massive loss.
You can tell Tom's prepared for this, like he normally does, because he's going ever so closer to his screen so that he can read all the details.
I think I should be an analyst with all those numbers.
I thought he got a really good memory, then I realised he's just reading the damn thing out.
Yeah, so the RFU reporting, or the Guardian reporting that the RFU are reporting losses of about £107 million. So obviously, those cuts have got to come in somewhere, save some money somewhere, and it seems that the community game is going to be hit the hardest.
Now, I thought those cuts of that magnitude were only if the Six Nations doesn't get finished, which looks like it's going to go ahead, and therefore, if the Six Nations gets finished, and then we get this extended sort of 6-team series. Now, bear in mind, in that 6-team series, we've got Fiji and Japan. And hashtag you heard it here first last week. We will see Italy getting the wooden spoon. It was a narrow decision between Italy and Scotland. But they will not lose every game because they will draw against Scotland, which means Scotland must have to have another draw or a win somewhere, Sam. So you don't want to feel too hard for yourself, because it does mean that you're still one better than Italy. I'm hoping Chris is going to come on the show later and show you the betting slip that he's put on. And we were going to put £1 on Italy getting the wooden spoon in that series, and £1 on Italy and Scotland drawing in that series as well. So hashtag you heard it here first. If we win, we'll buy you a Lucozade, because that's about all we'll be able to afford with that bet.
I think it'll be odds on like 1-2 to 1 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be terribly unlikely that Italy are going to lose. You're not going to get decent odds on that. Anyway, Sam, we know how lockdown love has been treating you. Lawrence,
shut up.
What's happening with your lockdown love?
He's been trying not to get shot up, hasn't he?
You see, Michael, in Kenya, we don't really even have a lockdown. It's kind of a restriction that was imposed on the capital city, Nairobi. But luckily enough, it's no longer there. So the country is free all around, but now the sale of alcohol is still banned. So no one can really access the bars or the liquor shops legally.
Mate, okay. So now I know you're a vegetarian, aren't you, Lawrence?
Yes, I am.
So you can make hooch and whiskey and vodka type drinks from vegetables, can't you? So without giving too much away and getting raided by men with truncheons, have you been partaking? Have you been making your own liquor?
Yeah, supposedly I drink vegan beer.
I'd hate to know what that smells like, mate, if you're making beer at home. Given the fact you've got one big cock and 60 hens in your back garden. In his back garden! It's a male chicken, boys.
It still sounds wrong, Mike. Big
anyway,
cock, hens, back garden.
Lawrence.
Yes.
How is your big cock? Has he grown any?
Yes, it has. I'll show you a picture in the coming days.
Send us a picture.
No, please don't show us any pictures. Oh, God.
Yeah. Do send us a picture of your big cock, please.
No. Don't send us. Send Mike.
Yeah, don't put it in the group chat.
Well, we put the last one in the group chat.
Will you?
Yeah, just for clarity, in case somebody just came onto this meeting, we are talking about something that's being sent to Mike, the host, and not to all of us who are proud representatives of society.
Lawrence, just post it on the group chat, mate, so they can all have a copy for their personal use.
Yeah, I actually want to do that.
Yeah.
I think this would be one of those subjects that you could call a heinous crime.
Oh, it would be a heinous crime. But if he ever gets accused of a heinous crime, Sam, I am nominating you as the attorney for the defence.
In fact, a heinous crime, Mike, I'm going to charge you with asking for a picture of his big cock.
Yes.
If I edit that really well, it's going to sound like you are asking Lawrence for a picture of his big cock.
No.
So, Mike, on that. So, yeah, Phil, can you put your judge napper on, mate?
Yep, I can.
Who's on trial now? Me or Lawrence?
No. So, I'm backing Lawrence. So I'm in defence of Lawrence. Phil, would you like to bring the proceedings to court, Mike?
Tom, I think you're the prosecution now. So please rise for His Honour, Big Judge Phil.
Evening, sir.
The prosecution under Mr. Tom Reed QC ABC DEF will outline the case against Mr. Lawrence Ishuga having a.
I'm pretty sure the case is against Mr. Mark Mulroy for asking for a picture of Mr. Ishuga's big cock.
I speak in defence of Lawrence. I speak in defence of Lawrence, and I completely agree with the offence, Tom Reed, Sir Tom Reed. Yes, this is against Mike completely for asking for a picture of the big cock. So I think he should just plead guilty and get on with it. What do you think, Sir Judge?
Can you hear me, my lord?
No, you don't, sir. Lawrence, you don't need to worry about anything here in this situation. I'm ready to render my decision.
I'm getting stitched up.
And the fact is that while I just met the three of you gentlemen, Tom, Sam, and Lawrence, I could tell you guys are of extenuous character, and therefore I dismiss all charges against Lawrence. However, in recognition of Tom's allegation, I am ready to render a judgment.
Please say, sir. Please say, sir. Please say, sir.
He's getting really excited, aren't you, Sam? Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir.
Please,
You
sir.
say that often. We're talking
Thank you,
about
sir.
a picture of a big cock, and you keep going, please, sir. Wait until I edit this together.
Anyone,
No.
I can honestly say in my few years of sitting on the royal bench
Does the Queen know?
that I can only say that this is
Not
probably
without
the
hair, dude.
first time publicly that a gentleman who is a representative of the English Empire and represents an organization of high quality match officials will even bring his own character into judgment by asking what seems to be a junior representative society to ask for a picture of his big wanker.
Willy Wonka.
Really.
Your Honour, I genuinely wanted to see how the development of his male of the species is going.
Now, I understand your validation or attempt thereof. It doesn't bring character value to what you're stating publicly. And keep in mind that you are actually going to the intent of publishing this trial.
Oh, no. There is a media ban on this trial. None of this will ever see the light of day.
Okay.
Oh, no, sir. Oh,
Hey,
no,
wait a
sir.
second. This is not the BBC, is it?
Oh, no, sir.
Oh, he went there.
You cannot be editing like the BBC edits. You can't be doing that.
What on earth do you mean, Sam?
Well, if it's got anything to do with Scotland, the BBC edit everything.
Oh, he went there again. Anyway, before we get taken off air permanently, which may not be...
No, hold on. Your Honour, no. Your Honour, have you clearly said your judgment and what his crime should be paid for?
Well, there's no doubt that he's guilty. I mean, I could go to the jury and of his peers, and I think that would be a waste of everybody's time.
Your Honour, I think an appropriate punishment would be that he has to down that bottle that's in front of him in the next 45 seconds before we go.
Yeah, I would say he's got 45 seconds. He needs to finish that bottle. That would be punishment for today.
Yeah, that's not the bottle. That's the
not the tankard. Not the tankard.
Yeah. Since he did give a countdown, it's only fair that we use that countdown. You know?
The reason was the bottle's empty. Now, before I birth quite loudly, I think it's a really good time to take a break. So we'll see you right after this. I had a black cough, I think I'd be wearing it on my head, or I'd be wearing a bag over my head now, being led to the gallows by my fine, trusty friends, because of course they haven't stitched me up in part 1 whatsoever. And if you enjoyed that, welcome back to part 2. It proves to be even more hilarious and probably heinous than part 1. Now, please join me in welcoming to the show. What is an old timer now? In many ways, and he's realised that Monday is dress down day, and he isn't wearing a suit anymore. It's Jan McGinty, all the way from Tigers. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
You learnt the first time round then?
Just about. To be fair, I had been on a board call before the last time, so I managed to take it a bit more leisurely today.
Good lad.
Quality.
Good lad.
Quality.
Now, you've had a proper busy 6 weeks or so since we saw you last, and we're going to come on to that because now is not the time to be coy. 5-6 weeks ago was, now you can let it all out. It's therapy. And to help you with that, we've got one of your old muckers in many ways, now working at Quins. It's Mark Mapletoft. How you doing, bud?
Good evening.
How's things?
Oh, good. Well, I've left. I don't want to drop this on you, but I've left Quins.
Tom?
Bombshell.
Tom?
I'd have come prepared, Mike.
No, not in this show, mate. We've never been prepared, ever.
This is unscripted. This is totally unscripted.
This is your third show, Phil. You should know by now. Tom, what did you pop into the group chat?
I thought you would have covered all of that, Mike. I thought you would have been so on it because you're so amazing all the time.
Mate, you're the news guru. You're supposed to brief me.
I'm going to vote to bring Chris back on.
Yeah.
He can pretend I still work there. I don't have a problem.
I would if he was here. So, Mark, in light of my faux pas, for which I am now undoubtedly going to get hauled before the Lord Judge Phil himself, yet again, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm just going to plead guilty because the defence last time was shit. Please tell us.
He didn't have one. He didn't bloody have one.
It wasn't.
Exactly. So please tell us what's been happening in your life.
I left Quins at the end of June to rejoin. I've gone back to work at the RFU. Yeah, I guess otherwise I'd have turned up in my 1970s retro Quins top.
A bit like Tomo's then.
Potentially.
So, why the move?
I think I've been there 10 years and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. We had some great times, did some great stuff. You know, we won the league, we won some cups. But I think 10 years is long enough, probably for my own sake, really, rather than the clubs. I think sometimes players outgrow you as a coach as well. And not that they're not good people and there's some fantastic players there, but I think I just needed a change. And the opportunity was presented to me before the stuff hit with COVID back in March time. And yeah, it was a good decision at the time. I don't regret it in any way, shape or form, but obviously in light of all the redundancies that have been going on, it does feel a little bit sort of hollow moving back. But yeah, look, it is what it is, and you've got to try and kind of move on and do your job as best you can.
So in the difficult situation that we face at the moment, mate, what's your brief?
Yeah, a couple of things really. I'm going to be working in terms of team structure with the under-18s, and as an overview, really, we want to try and get bodies back on the ground, working with those age group teams. It's something I think we did really well from about 2005 through to maybe 2016, 17. We've mainly had attached coaches coming in from clubs over the last 2 or 3 years, which there are pros and cons. But I think not having people on the ground working on a daily, weekly basis means it's very difficult to get any continuity. And I don't think the players benefit from that. And you wouldn't see that necessarily at full England level. The impact wouldn't be immediate. But I think in the next sort of 3 to 4 years, probably post the next World Cup, hopefully you'll start to see some of those guys coming through and benefiting from having a different voice and maybe some continuity in terms of some of the age group coaching.
I don't want to drop you in it. Well, we don't care if we drop you in it. Actually, that's the whole point of the show. As Jan knows, obviously this happened well before you took over that role in the RFU. But last year the decision to get rid of the England students representative team. How does that affect you as was an academy coach? You in your role now, and how do you see them fitting in that age group in the universities? How do you see them fitting into the system?
Yeah, I think it's a big piece, and I really do. I think there's a lot of scope for players to go to college, go to university, and follow a different pathway. I just because you don't make it as a player coming through an academy system doesn't mean it's the end of your career. I really don't. I think there's some high profile, maybe the highest profile. Would we say Nick Easter? Maybe Easter went to Nottingham Trent, went to Orrell, came back to Quins, got 50 caps. It's not a barrier. Alex Dombrandt's followed a similar path. Clearly hasn't developed into that level of player yet, but there is definitely an avenue for players who go through the Bucks. And look, if the Bucks competition is as strong as it can be, do you need necessarily a students' team? It's nice to be, it's nice to represent your country at any level. But if there aren't the finances there to make it worthwhile, then somebody's making a decision that's maybe not in the best interest of the group. But I certainly think there's lots of lads who come through that university route who can become full-time professional players.
Just for the clarity and transparency, you and I have never met before, right?
Well, potentially we could have been separated at birth.
Yeah.
Isn't that what a magician says to his assistant?
Well, we have, I think, probably the same barber.
Well, I'll tell you what, do you cut your head as much as I cut mine? Because I definitely need
my head is actually fits a razor, so it actually works pretty well for me. I got a question for you, though. Besides, how do you cut your hair? Is there a coincidence that the British Lions Tour is going away to South Africa next year, and you came back to the RFU? Are you going to be a part of that?
Oh no! If only. No, nothing. No. Where would you get that from?
I don't know. I'm just trying to throw it out there because potential exposure. Maybe there'll be a junior Lions Tour.
Do you know what? Junior Lions, wouldn't that be a great idea?
That's actually not a bad idea, that.
Hashtag you hear here first.
Yeah. No, a junior Lions Tour that mimics the senior Lions would be pretty cool.
They'd have to, because the Junior World Cup happens every year, though. There'd have to be a gap year, wouldn't there? So you'd have 3 years of a Junior World Cup and then a Lions. Do you think that would be fair, though? Because potentially you could fall slap bang in the middle of that in terms of your age group and then not play. It'd have to be every 2 years, wouldn't it? And then it becomes...
Yeah, I think you would have to do it sort of every 2 years. And maybe the Junior Lions every 4 years follows the Senior Lions. But on the alternate tour, they go to somewhere that's not normally on the Lions schedule. Let's extend it, to different parts of the world.
Like North America.
I think the other problem is if you superseded the Junior World Cup, all the other teams, all the other countries that would then lose out from not having that competition, just so the British Lions could have a junior team, it wouldn't really sort of all link together, as amazing as it would be.
I mean, you don't have to have it the same period of time. I mean, it could be staggered prior to it as a lead up to it, or after the World Cup is done.
The Junior World Cup started in its current guise in 2008 when they merged the under-19s and under-21s into an under-20s. So that was to kind of cut down on costs, and also there were guys who could have played in the under-19s who probably would have played in the under-21s. So it did seem sensible to amalgamate the two. It'd be interesting. I mean, I think I might be one out, but I'm pretty sure either 20 or 21 of the England squad in the World Cup final had come through the under-20 program with England. So it's a decent stepping stone.
I think it's great for all sorts of parts of rugby because obviously it gives opportunities for coaches, opportunities for young up-and-coming referees as well. So I think it's a great competition in general, and the fact that it's every year, moving all around the world. I think last year it was in Argentina. The year before that it was in the south of France.
We went to Japan in 2009 to Tokyo as a kind of, I think it was as a plan. It was 10 years before the 2019, because I guess they thought at some point the World Cup was going to go to Tokyo. And that was a brilliant experience for the lads. There was quite a few lads who went on that tour. Were out in Japan last year.
Tofty, I've got a question for you.
Yes, Jansky, how are you, son?
Oh, right, mate. So obviously what you touched on there, and obviously around your role and the change in the coaching setup, and so you kind of, and I'm not going to try and drop you in it, but so you kind of alluded to the time when Fletcher Waltz kind of in there and basically brought their ideas through the system. Obviously, when you alluded to 2016-17, it might be when Dean was there. And then suddenly a lot of guys changed their roles or left the union. So from your perspective, obviously, do you feel, I know that they tried to bring in different perspectives, bringing coaches from the club scene to do almost like a sabbatical 12-month, 18-month running contract. Do you think that if you've got the right individuals, having them as full-time employees is far more beneficial to the programs than just having someone that's jumping in, jumping out? Because I get what you're saying with regards to having someone that's focused on those age groups and go around all the clubs, build those relationships, but also they're not necessarily as coaching as regularly as some of the other coaches who will be doing week to week on the academy stuff. Yeah,
and look, what you have to remember, Jan, is that a lot of the academy coaches, they don't coach week to week. What they do, but it's often only a session a week maximum. You know, a lot of what you call junior academy lads. So for clarity, guys, under 18s, kids, the lads who are still at school. Most clubs, not all, run outreach programs, so they would go and visit those players at the schools. But those lads only go in once to a maximum twice a week. They might go in twice a week during the league program, which is only December through to February. The rest of the time, the majority of the lads are either in their race colleges at whichever club that's linked to, or they're in pretty high-profile schools. So they'd have a full-on coaching program there. So this kind of misconception that academy coaches are coaching all the time is not, in essence, actually true. They probably don't do that much coaching. I think, Jan, to answer your question, I think a combination of the two is the best way forward. I don't see any reason why you can't have attached coaches from academies working with the program, as long as it's structured, purposeful, as long as there's a point of reference in terms of coach development at the union to allow, look, for example, if myself and John who do the under 18s, you're in a camp or preparing for a game, you don't necessarily have the time to spend with those attached coaches. However, if they are chaperoned by somebody who is in charge of elite coach development, then the whole program starts to be joined up. Those coaches benefit, they see the experience, they go back to their clubs and they learn. And equally, the players have a standard point of reference, i.e. me from a backs or John from a forwards perspective. And then if we then join up with the under 20s, so Alan Dickens is currently in that position with the 20s, and that post, the forwards post, will be filled, I'm sure, at some point. The communication is seamless then, because they're fully aware of the best players coming through, who needs to work on what. It's also a regular communication with the clubs. So I'll use an example, a live example. Two of the lads who went on the under-18 tour last year were then pretty much just left to their own devices once they got back to their clubs. So there was no follow-up for the players. There was no feedback for those coaches in terms of how it had gone. And that was it. It was like a sort of a line in a sand drawer. And you think, well, that's not a joined-up thought process. So, look, I think there's definitely both work. And hopefully we're working towards a situation where, everybody benefits. And you also got to remember as well, within an academy, you could have a real extreme. So Mike Heinard, who's the academy manager at Saracens, has been in that role for pretty close to 20 years. So there's not a lot that he hasn't seen or done. Would he necessarily want to be an attached coach, and would he benefit from that? Probably not, because Mike would see himself, as talent ID and maybe more of a, an administrator and working around strategy. But actually, if he's got younger coaches working for him, then what a brilliant experience. Come along. Yeah. Come along.
And how does that fit in with what Leicester Tigers is doing at the minute?
Well, to be fair, I was just going to say, so like John Pendlebury, who Tofty was talking about, he's already been into us. It was kind of a social distance meeting, just coming in to see Dave Wilkes. Dave Wilkes is our academy manager. He came from Sale. He's outstanding.
We got Dave contacted me, Jan, about just at the beginning of lockdown, and we had a Zoom call like this with Dave and the academy staff, because he texted me and said, look, you've obviously brought a lot of young players through Quins from the academy into the first team and beyond, and we were just bouncing ideas around, and that kind of open forum is, I think we need to encourage more. I still think we work too separately, but again, I think what you got with the under-18s with Fletcher and Walks for that sort of 10-year period, was amazing. They knew all the players, they knew all the contacts, they knew everybody in the game, and it just makes life so much easier. And we need to work back towards that. Look, everybody has a different view of how systems and processes should run, and everybody's got a different level of resource at any given time. And, decisions were made that wasn't the way we were going to do things, or the RFU weren't doing things. And, that's that.
But I think the other thing is, we still see it as a massive honour for our players to represent their country at whatever level. Yeah. And so, obviously, we've had a number of the 18s recently. I think Emeka was captain, wasn't he?
Yeah, he would have been one of the captains. Yeah.
And so, we've got a really strong history there, but we want to encourage them to try and get exposure to your coaches as much as we can. And I think, as you say, by having those open relationships and guys on the ground visiting the clubs and stuff like that, then that's only a positive for us. Yeah. So,
Tigers had. I was only briefly involved again as an attached coach back in February, but you had Archie Vaines, Jack Roundtree, Kit Smith, and Emeka. Potentially 4 of the starting pack, could have been from Tigers. So you would like to think, given the right opportunity and exposure at club level, those guys could start to push through into, the Shield stuff next year, into the under-20s, and then hopefully outside of that into the first team. It might take a bit longer for the forwards, but typically you think those guys are standout players. They really should be able to push through given the right opportunity. And I think that was something Wilkesy and I touched on, Jan, was, have all players, not necessarily at Tigers, but at Quins as well, have they been given the opportunity in the same way that, 10, 15 years ago, Mike Brown, Chris Robshaw, Jordan Turner-Hall, George Lowe, those guys were given the opportunity to play. Has that been presented, to players consistently since?
I think the concern is in the immediacy, though, is because of COVID. So unlikely, there'll be no Premiership Cup next year. There might be some form of competition with a mixture for the A-League and Prem Cup. But my concern is those guys that we might have sent out on loan to Championship clubs. Championship might not start till the new year because they want to play in front of crowds. So those guys are literally going to be training for the next 6 months. And it's actually how much rugby are they getting into them.
Yeah, I see the concern. I'm always a glass half full type person, Jan, but I would look at it and say, well, maybe it might prolong their careers a bit.
Oh, look, I'm sure it does. You've got to take a look at it. And also some of those boys do need some time in the gym just to deal with professional rugby. But it's going to be interesting because we've got a squad, so they're training at the moment with the first team, and some, to be fair, might even get some game time in the next 9 weeks, where we've got such a lot of games over that period, with 2 weeks where we've got 3 games in 8 days. So in all likelihood, we are going to have to rotate the squad to allow those guys to get some game time. Yeah. But, look, those guys will love the opportunity to play. So
I think there's been some bad press as well around the whole kind of physical condition of academy players, that people say they spend too much time in the gym. That's not, when people talk about getting gym fit and being robust and durable. That's exactly what they mean. Is that this, for anybody who's played, and let's be honest, I haven't played in a wee while, but the game is so physical. When you talk about being in the gym and conditioning, what they mean is getting durable and creating a body that's able to be robust enough over a 12-year career to actually sustain the level of physical contact that goes on now. And I just think that we kind of get lost in translation, and people mistake, being in the gym, that's all the lads are doing.
Yeah.
It's not that. Well, you know that.
And especially when you talk about some of those front row guys as well, from a safety perspective, they've got to build up their strength. So it's not telling me that Jack Roundtree next week's going to be replacing Dan Cole,
No, of course.
It was a few years ago. I'd seen a couple of Scotland international lads, and one of them, I think it was Sean Lamont, was coming back from a shoulder injury. It was like return to play test was literally 2 guys running full tilt into each other. That was the test for them if they're fit or not.
Mark, did you just say it's been a little while since you played?
Well, it depends what you class as little.
Listen, when you're my height, size is relative anyway. Listen, you always say
you're a glass half full.
That's why I said little and not long.
Yeah.
Vertically challenged, we say. Vertically challenged.
You can shut up. I've had enough of you tonight. I've had enough of you tonight. These two boys don't know how you've stitched me up tonight. So you just wait, Mr. Phil.
You're horizontally challenged as well, to be fair, mate. You are.
Yeah, I'm challenged in many, many ways. Some of which we just can't go into, even in this show. But mate, you said you're a glass half full kind of guy. How does that fit in with your playing career and some of the things you used to get up to?
Well, are we past the watershed?
Oh, this is always past
Jan
the
knows
watershed.
exactly what I'm talking about. We passed the watershed. I played in a really loose area. Jan knows the London Irish era well as I do, and I would say for the 3 years I was there was about as loose as you could possibly get. And I'd had some
I
pretty.
think you had
I'd
a
had
decent. Gloucester wasn't.
Well, that's what I'm
too
saying.
far off.
Gloucester was pretty bad. So to compare it with that was.
You had some good characters there, man.
Oh yeah, very.
Yeah, and did you ever represent Mark or get involved in any negotiations around him?
Well, we had a few chats over a few beers. Actually, the last time I saw Mark was at Cheltenham about 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
We were talking about coaching careers then. No, I played against Tofty. You won't remember this, but I played for Newbury when we played Gloucester in a pre-season friendly.
I remember that.
Between you and Simon Mannix, I was playing 12. You made me look very stupid.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember.
But I actually more remember my time with Mark socially than playing wise.
We went. The funniest story. Well, it is. I don't know whether it's that funny or not, but we. It was during the Gary Gold, Paul Hull era. We went on a pre-season tour to. I want to say Gosport. Is that down by Portsmouth, like a naval base?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it was one of these things where we were, typically in and out the swimming pool doing activities. I literally as far away from my comfort zone as you can get. Anyway, we went out that night and all hell broke loose. There was a couple of scuffles. And we really kicked on into the early hours. I don't know what time we got back, but I remember being woken up at about 5:30 by Hully and Gigi. And we got taken to this gym and it was just literally painstaking. It was like, it was literally something out of the military. And it turned out they were so annoyed with us because they'd actually been back to the rooms at 4:30 to wake us up. And literally there was only 2 people out of a squad of 30 actually in. So they had to come back an hour earlier, and then they took it out on us even more in the gym. I mean, I was hungover. I literally couldn't even speak. It was a decent night.
Now you get where we're coming from on this show, and you've alluded to a good night out with Mark. What's your best night out when you were a player?
Oof.
You are Mr. Coy, because last time you came on the show, you just smiled and you said nothing. You're literally like Manuel from Fawlty Towers, aren't you? I know nothing.
I probably had better nights out when I was representing players than when I played, and that was more because I probably ended up footing the bill. But just trying to think. Actually, Tofty will know a few of these boys. The best guys to go out with are wherever, if you're on a tour or World Cup or whatever, all the media guys. So basically, ex-players that are in the media that normally have to kind of front up at some point in the evening, but normally they're only doing it every 3 days, so they're out entertaining most nights. So I've kind of had some good mates, people like Paul Wallace, and there was kind of in 2011 at the World Cup in New Zealand, because of the time difference, basically everyone that was based in Europe didn't really have much to do in the day because the kind of business hours have been in the evening. So every single person was lunching and dinnering and then basically going out every night. So you then have to try and start working about midnight, which is obviously sometimes quite an issue. But they'd put on down in the waterfront, down by the viaduct in Auckland, pretty much like a bar where you could go and stuff like that. And so back in the day, this is before I'd actually started working for the club, Worcester was invested in by Dave Allen, who's the D and DHL. So Dave had hired a bar from the quarter-final onwards, down by the viaduct, where the first floor was just DHL would take their clients there, and it always has some kind of rugby royalty as such, but it was kind of the best party in town. And it would go till 5, and then there was another bar that opened at 6 that you could kind of go, and so you'd actually just be sun coming up, having a beer and stuff like that. And then, so the World Cup in New Zealand was good fun, but the thing is that once you've done it once, it sounds great, but there's nothing to do in Auckland, because there's 2 or 3 places which are brilliant, but like 8 weeks of it, and you're just like, this is just too much. Like, I need to get on a plane home. Like, I know so many people were so broken just coming back to the UK after that. I probably dodged that again, actually, but
So, whose dog's barking?
Tom's.
Tom's just muted himself. It can't be Lawrence's, because his would go cock-a-doodle-doo. Lawrence, you've been quite quiet since the break. Do you have anything like this for your up-and-coming rugby stars in Kenya?
Not really, I say.
So, would you like Jan or Mark to come over and work with you guys? Because I'm sure that Jan needs a little bit of his liver needs a little bit of recovery after all those client meetings, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind a week or so in Nairobi.
did you play in the Sevens out there, Tofty?
Yeah, I managed a team out there.
Was that the one with Powley in it?
It was London Irish. I want to say maybe 2004, 4 maybe.
Yeah.
Brilliant trip.
Was that at the Safari Sevens?
Safari Sevens in Nairobi, followed by 4 days at Malindi.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
I take it you know where Malindi is, do you, Lawrence?
Yes, I do. It is a coastal town.
It's on the coast, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, we had some fun out there.
Did you enjoy some coconut?
Most of us on this call were going to go to the Safari Sevens this year to help out. So I'm not sure, Jan, that we've really scraped the surface now that we're able to. So we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, not only will it be time for the rumour mill, that's a warning, Mark, that's a quick heads up. Jan just strokes his beard thoughtfully. Every time we mention the rumour mill and Jan's on, he sits and strokes his beard. So Jan's got about 2 minutes while we go for a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to get into Jan and the things he couldn't talk about, but maybe he can now in a little more detail. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
When you need clear and concise match official communication systems, look no further than the brand new AXIWE AT350.
Radios are always useful, they always help us, especially AXIWEs, where all 3 of us can be open at any time, we can have open communication.
Available now from refcomsglobal.net. Investing profits into match official development worldwide.
Welcome back to part 3 of your favourite rugby. In fact, probably one of the only rugby podcasts and YouTube shows at the moment, because everybody else has quite rightly finished for the end of the season, whatever this season was. But we're not like that. We're not going to let you down. We're going to give you all the same crap that we normally give you all the way through the off season as well. The good news is our complete shit that we talk is tempered by great people like Jan McGinty and Mark Mapletoft. And we apologise to them for dragging their knowledge, experience and tone down into the gutter with us. Now, as you saw in the break, the advert for Genius Brewing, and look, here it is, a can of Genius Lager, craft lager. It's only 1 unit of alcohol. It's only 79 calories as well. do go on to flavorly.com, do buy yourself a case, because 5p from every can is donated to, well, look at it, Sam's best charity in the world, the Doddy Weir Foundation. Do please go and check out the work that the Doddy Weir Foundation is doing. Go to www.myname.then-the-figure5doddy.co.uk. Follow them on social media. In fact, while you're at it, why not follow us on social media? Just go to Twitter, to Instagram, and to Facebook. Search for @22dropouts. If you're posh and you're on LinkedIn, you can search 22 Dropouts as well. Anyway, before the break, we were talking in quite some depth, which is very, very unusual for this show, with Mark and Jan about the academy setup and the under-18s and how that's going to go and work moving forward with England. Now, it's time to depart from all of that good rugby talk. It's now time to chat more shit. And several weeks ago, Jan was not able to say an awful lot, but he was able to stroke the beard an awful lot while he spoke, while he thought. In fact, the amount of times we edited the silences while he did this, yeah, just like that. Mark's got it down to a T. I think Phil might be going there as well. So Jan, the season negotiations have ended. Mostly. Talk to us about the things that you couldn't talk to us before. Tell us what happened, how the season finished off for you, how the season finished off for Tigers in terms of those contract negotiations, and what's the new season or the resumption going to look like for you in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, I think as you alluded to, Mark, it's been quite a fluid 7-week period. If you go back to the start of June, basically all of the clubs decided they wanted to reduce the salary cap to 5 million plus credits, so effectively that's £6 million. But what they did give was effectively a week loophole to effectively make sure all of their contracts were in order. So what that meant was if a player signed a contract before the 17th of June and it was past the 1st of July 2021, only 75% of their salary could be shown into the salary cap. So what you then saw was a number of teams pretty much signing up the majority of their squad. So I believe Bath signed 40 of their team. I think Sale did 35 contracts. Exeter did high 20s. Similar numbers at Northampton. We looked at it slightly differently because I wanted to ensure that the squad, we basically were maximising our credit numbers. So we signed up 12 guys we knew would get our academy credits or homegrown credits for, and then some of our higher profile England players that we knew we wanted to continue at the club. We were also in a position where we had to look at getting players to accept a wage reduction of 25%. We did that to effectively ensure that we had the ability to borrow money, because we're the only PLC, so therefore we have to look to third parties for funding sometimes, especially in the current climate. If we had players reserving their rights, that meant that we'd have a contingent liability on our balance sheet, so we couldn't borrow money. We basically asked all our players to take a wage reduction with a mechanism for them to receive a proportion of that money back in the future when the club's back up and actually making money. 33 players accepted that, 5 didn't. So we had to show that effectively the club's bigger than no one individual. So we had a number of long nights and board calls and decisions to make. Kind of touching a bit on what Mark said in the previous bit, is I actually look at this from a positive perspective. Is we have 33 guys that absolutely want to play for the club and can't wait to get started. It also coincided with Steve Borthwick starting, with Alan Walter starting. So you've got a head coach who was the forwards coach of the World Cup final, and the head of strength and conditioning who is on the opposition for the Springboks, both now ensconced in our training facility, both pushing the team to try and get better. So we then have to find replacement bodies for those individuals. I think I've never done so many deals so swiftly in such a small period of time and announced them, having
I bet
effectively.
if you were still an agent, you'd be rubbing your hands together during that week or so.
You would and you wouldn't, because I was pretty ruthless around the negotiation. So I think some of the salaries they were getting pre-COVID weren't the salaries that are now being paid. But the reality is a lot of them just want to be in a good environment, want to come to a place where they think they can get better and actually work with world-class coaches. As all of that's gone on, we had a consultancy period at the club, like Mark was talking about the RFU. We had to make 31 redundancies. And that's the hardest bit, was when you see really good people that absolutely are passionate and love the club actually unable to continue working there because of the current climate. And that we kind of made a conscious effort and decision that if and when we're in a position where we are getting crowds back in and we are starting to make money again, that we can try and get those individuals back working within the business. But that's probably the toughest bit about all this. So players will always be upset about wage reductions. The players aren't necessarily losing their jobs, which is something that other the latest staff were. So I kind of look at it now, and yes, we went through a really tough time, but it's now the time that other clubs are having to go through exactly the same process. So other clubs are now making redundancies. Other clubs are having arguments around wage reductions. I've got players wanting to reserve their rights so they can sue the club in the future for effectively a breach of contract. So we're actually probably 6 to 8 weeks ahead of our peers. So I'm hugely positive. And even if this next 9 games is about us almost using them from a pre-season perspective to get better, I actually think I can't wait for the 21st of November till we're starting the new season and actually hopefully getting some crowds there as well, and actually seeing what the team can deliver with the new faces and with the new coaches as well. So I'm actually a lot more relaxed than the last time we spoke. And
you look a lot more relaxed. In fact, you're drinking wine instead of water tonight, although he does keep having a sip of water just for the camera. Now, you talk about the new season as well, and talking about crowds. I mean, we chatted last week about the possibility of you testing at Leicester Tigers crowds coming in a small number. Now, that announcement by the government on Friday, that because of spikes coming back into the country, that's not going to happen for the foreseeable. That must have been quite a blow as well to the club.
Well, I don't know how true that is, to be honest, because we're still planning to potentially be one of the test venues for our home game against Bath on the 22nd of August. So again, I've probably broken that. Oh, Sam's probably doing brain exploding somewhere. But but my understanding is that yes, they're still looking at.
Sam loves this show, especially when I tag him into it.
Yeah. So I'm quite surprised that, look, if that is the case, I get it, because obviously, for example, Leicester's been in a regionalised lockdown.
Yeah.
But we're kind of coming out the other side of it. But look, it's really hard to know. And as we've all said before, in all walks of life, it's such a fluid situation. No one really knows what's going on. I think everyone's just desperate to go back and watch some sport live in some way, shape or form. I think it was a bit of a mistake by Darren Childs quoting him saying that rugby would be the first sport on TV or in front of crowds. Obviously, with the nature of our sport, that's always going to be highly unlikely. But I think the anticipation of when we can get some form of crowds will be huge. I know, obviously, with Mark's RFU hat on, I think that's what drives the national game, and actually the funding around all forms of the game is actually ensuring that Twickenham's full. So even if they can get some bodies in there come the autumn test and this revamped competition, then that will benefit the club game across the country. So look, we're kind of all sat there, fingers crossed that some of these localized lockdowns can stop and we can actually try to target when we know when we can go to watch games again. But I, for one, won't be complaining about having to watch live sport again. I can tell you that.
No, definitely. Now you talk about those that sort of week, 10 days with the high contract negotiations and everything else. Given the 5 guys who, for personal reasons, didn't want to join others with that wage cut, what was it? Were the guys actually in coming into the ground by then? Were you training then, or was it all still very remote at the time?
No, we'd just gone from we were still in phase one. The following week we were due to go to phase two, so we were still in social distance, effectively fitness training in group of 6. To be fair, we still managed to. I think a lot of the frustration initially when this all started was we weren't able to have conversations with players and explaining properly around potential wage reductions. The good thing about it being slightly later in this process is myself and the CEO, Andrew Pinchin, sat down with all players that had issues with the wage reductions face to face, social distance, of course, but actually just to hear their side of the story and actually get a better understanding around their concerns and why it might not be appropriate for them. And as you say, look, everyone's an individual, and for some of those, they just felt it's something that they weren't willing to entertain. So, but I do think the fact that we had almost learned from the previous mistakes of not being able to do it and having to do it like this virtually, that at least the players felt that they had their opportunity to voice their concerns and go through that. So if those 5 guys would decide to move on and play elsewhere or do another thing, I get that. That's their choice. I think the opportunity we gave them to talk, I think hopefully they feel we were fair about it. But ultimately, as I say, no one's bigger than the club, and we had to do this from purely a financial reason, that if we didn't, the club could have gone into administration. So it's either 75% of something or 0% of nothing, and the club goes under.
No, I think you're right. Now, given the fact that these guys were training, even in small bubbles, and undoubtedly they were talking to themselves on WhatsApp groups and the various things, what was the mood like, or the temperature across the rest of the group during this? Was it still sort of positive apart from these guys, or was it getting dragged down a bit?
The irony is, actually, training was outstanding. We'd had this, because we had talked, we were probably one of the first clubs to look at the wage reductions and implement it quite swiftly. We'd had actually a lot more than 5 that initially had concerns, and then we managed to work through a list of players and that got down to a number of 5. But to be fair, I think it was part of that lockdown where the lads were like, coaches, referees, players love routine, and they love to know what's going to happen. So you get your schedule for the next 3-4 week blocks, whatever. That the fact that they didn't know when this was going to end, the fact that they were back in training and actually just able to run around and actually be outside and actually see their mates was huge. So the reality is that they're actually in a really positive space. Take away the wage reductions and stuff like that, they were just happy to be out with their mates training outside. What helped was we had Steve coming in further over in 3-4 weeks' time. We had Aled come who'd actually started slightly earlier, so he was training them, and they could see an immediate change in the way that our strength and conditioning was going, how it's a lot more rugby aligned, and they could actually see the purpose to what they were doing. And so the irony is, for all of the off-field stuff, the on-field stuff was outstanding. So it is weird. I mean, but I think the reality is what we've touched on before, it is a professional game now, and people have to compartmentalize those aspects to it, because ultimately they'll be letting themselves down more than anything if they didn't or weren't able to train at the highest possible level. And the reality is that if you don't like the wage cut or whatever and you have to leave, you're still going to have to try and find a job. So you're still going to need to be in good nick.
Before we get into the very complex nature that is the rumour mill, I've got a quick question, because everybody's seen on the news about Ian McGinty and X, Y, and Z are all picking their Lions 15, and everybody seems to have an opinion about the skipper. And now, Maro Itoje, and that's why I mentioned Maro earlier, because I'd read the wrong bit on my desk. Maro was tipped by a lot of people to become the Lions skipper, but in recent sort of days over the last week, there's been a few dissenters on that, and I've just thought, let's put that out there and let's ask everybody who they would have as their Lions skipper and whether it's going to be Maro or not. So, Jan, you're at the top of my screen. Let's ask you first. Your thoughts on Maro Itoje as Lions skipper, or anybody else?
I think for a number of reasons, Maro would be outstanding. I think if you go back to when Geach appointed Jono, he wanted the biggest bloke in the centre circle.
27, yeah.
and basically, I think with Maro is that he's one of the few that would get into a World 15. He's phenomenal. He's an outstanding individual, speaks incredibly well. But what I quite like is from a guy that's got obviously strong Nigerian links, that he could actually come back to Africa and actually represent the Lions. I think would be huge. I'm sure there'll be a whole host of marketeers that think that would be a money spinner in some way, shape or form. But I just think for him, the way he holds himself and the way he could demand the respect of his peers, I think you could see a second row of him and James Ryan. I think that he's still young, but I still think that, and he hasn't necessarily captained since he was in the under-20s and won it with England. But I just think he'd be phenomenal.
Mark, what about you? What's your thoughts on Maro or anybody else as skipper?
Yeah, I agree with Jan. I think the piece around that is, is a solid one. The similarities, I guess, to Jono in '97. People like to sort of draw comparison across that. I just not sure. I wonder whether the game will be physical enough for him, given where South Africa are, and you always get that in South Africa anyway. But I just wonder whether the lack of captaincy experience moving into that area might be too much. I haven't read to be honest, I haven't read too much about the dissenting voices. I see the upsides, and in my my half full pint pot, I personally would go with Farrell.
Okay, cool. Lawrence, you're next on my screen.
He doesn't like to play physical, does he?
No, mate, you can have your turn in a minute. I know as soon as you mention the name Farrell, you've got to speak, but mute yourself for just 2 minutes. It's your turn soon. Lawrence, what do you think of Maro becoming captain? And if it's not Maro, who would you have?
Personally, I would go with Ian Farrell. Probably because he's got that experience of being in a leadership position. For Maro, he is a good lad, a good player who really knows his staff well, but just that inexperience and actually playing the Lions too, it is a big thing in world rugby to say. So somehow a big podium for him.
Okay, cool. No, I get that, and there's a lot of people who are up and in between the two. Phil, now I know you're a big Lions fan, and you've been huge,
yeah.
And you go wherever you can. Who would be your captain? Would it be Maro or somebody else?
First of all, the best rugby experience I've ever had in my life was in 2009. At the British Lions tour in Durban, and it was phenomenal. Of course, it helped get that whole experience because South Africa did win that game. It would have been a whole different experience if South Africa didn't win that game and you wouldn't have had that whole atmosphere, but it was incredible. I've been on every Rugby World Cup since 95 and every Lions tour since 97, so I speak with a little bit of experience and probably longer than at least 2 people were born on this call. I just want to see good games, man. I just want to see good leadership and a really good experience from the fan perspective.
I mean, completely avoid the question as to who you would want to be the Lions captain. I mean, Jan has just taken. Did you see him writing notes about how to avoid the question without rubbing the beard? Then you literally dazed everybody else with your stories and raconteur. So, captain of the Lions, Phil, Lord Judge Phil.
I would not want to see Colin leading it. That's what I could say.
Right, you heard it here first. Sam? Yeah, you don't like talking about Farrell, do you?
No, well, you know what? Unlike Phil, I've never been to a World Cup match or a Lions tour, but that'll be changing as of next year because I'm going on the Lions. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Farrell fan. However, he's probably the ideal person for the Lions tour. However, Maro is a fantastic player, and there is similarities from when Johnson was in the 97, and you can understand why. But I think Farrell's probably the best man for the job on that count. Unfortunately, fortunately, sorry, not sorry.
If you could choose a Scotsman to be captain, who would you choose?
David Soul.
Okay. Can we have one that's actually might make the tour?
Well, Hoggy's still too young, although I do believe he'll be the starting fullback. Finn Russell, no. So there probably isn't one, to be fair, out of the Scotland camp.
So out of the Scotland camp now, or I mean, you just mentioned people who are too young. Now, as in the Scotland camp, or the ones that may be coming through, who do you see as a future captain of the Lions from the land of the salt air?
Oh, mate. Well, Hoggy's captain in Scotland just now, so there is a chance that in the future, because I think he will probably be a player because he was young, because he was the youngest tourist 8 years ago or 6 years ago. So I reckon he'll probably end up doing 4 tours. So there is a possibility of Hoggy being a captain, especially with his experience getting from Scotland. But it all depends, because I mean, at the end of the day, England's got quality players and they've got a far more bigger group to choose from and whatnot. And Scotland, unfortunately, is not the best country at the times for playing away for games, are they? So we all know the results that we get, including draws allegedly against Italy. Don't know where that's coming from, anyway.
You heard it here first last week, obviously. Now, Tom, what are your thoughts on Marrow or anybody else as captain?
I think that the points that Jan made are really, really good. I just think that Marrow probably hasn't had the... No. Just hear me out for a minute. I just don't think he's probably had the time, obviously, since the last time he properly was able to captain a side like that is the Junior World Cup. So, I mean, nice actually, if Sarries at their time in the Championship, yes, I've just mentioned it, would be able to get him in as a captain in some of those games, get him a bit more exposure in that sort of role. It would help prepare him a bit, especially some of the tougher matches where, I mean, let's be honest, in the Championship, we are going to expect them to walk over it, but I don't think that any Championship side is going to roll over and let the steamroller go straight through them. I think they're going to make sure that they're going to have to work for every single point that Sarries gets. So that could always be a test. It could be easy. It could be a big test for him. So I think that'd be quite interesting to see as well.
I think a valid question here, Mike, is does the captain need to be a starting 15 player?
Well, again, there you go as to who is the squad captain and who is the match day captain. Do you need, another question is, do you need a squad captain? Do you need somebody? Can you have a couple? So do you have a Saturday captain and a midweek captain, and they work together collectively off the pitch? I don't know. There's lots of things, and leadership's one of those funny things.
Too many participation trophies in that comment, Mike.
Absolutely. I've got a 9th place ribbon from the egg and spoon race when I was 5. Shut up. It's hanging up behind my shirt.
Let's not do 2005 again, please.
We are almost out of time. And the reason we put the Marrow question is because our usual gang of suspects have come up with absolutely fuck all in terms of rugby rumours this week. So with 1 minute each, we are going to turn to our special guests and ask them their best rugby rumour that they have heard over the last sort of 7 to 10 days. I'm coming to Mark first because I can see Jan is looking up at the sky again already. It's only a short space of time before he rubs his beard. So Mark, the best rugby rumour that you have.
Jan's like this. He's got his finger on the pulse, so he is just going to laugh me out. But I heard Kieran Reid's coming to play in the Prem in November.
Hashtag, you heard it here first.
Oh.
Jan, you do not have to comment about Mark's brilliant rumour. What you do have to do is come up with one of your own.
The problem is that all of the rumours in the press are written about us at the moment. So, like,
It'll be a week before this show comes out.
I didn't want to link Kieran Reid to the Welford Road, but now you mention it.
To be fair, we've signed a young kid from the Cheetahs who's coming in November. So, he's going to be very good. But ironically,
doesn't have to be with Tigers.
I don't know.
Throw another team under the bus, Jan. Throw somebody else under the bus.
Come on, Jan.
Okay, this is...
Bang on the desk and shout, Jan.
Yeah.
You know you've got it in you.
There's a current team who go about their recruitment by having their star player, their head coach, and their CEO on a WhatsApp group. I'm just going to leave that there.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I know who that is. That's not
Is
a
he
rumour.
talking about you?
Mark, I think you could comment, but Yang couldn't because of the way he's flicking his beard now.
The jungle drums have been beating that in Ascot, bud, for about 4 weeks.
The problem is, Yam just likes the show so much that he wants to leave us dangling so that we invite him back on. But listen, you are both. Yam's been on before. It's great to have you back, mate. Mark, really great. And I'd love sometime after you've settled into the new job and things are sort of moving on a little bit, we'd love you to come back on if you don't mind and tell us how the new job's getting on and how the squad's progressing, if you don't mind. Guys, we have run out of time. We could go on forever, but don't matter. You can listen to it on your journey to work or when you're doing the gardening just by tuning into Acast or Spotify. But do go and watch this and watch the back catalogue and look out for some of our specials as well. Well, that's all we got time for tonight. Very, very, very big thank you to our guests, Jan McGinty and Mark Mapletoft, and all of the guys who've joined us tonight. Don't forget to check out our back catalogue. Check us out on social media at 22 Dropouts. And make sure you go and check out the Doddy Weir Foundation as well. The links are on the screen now. We'll see you with another classic show next week. In the meantime, stay safe and have fun. Good night.